Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm your host this evening, Robin Blank-Mascari, and we get together every week to give an introduction to a very special company, Lifewave, and the star of the show, our lead product, X39. This evening, we'll do a little summary and overview and history of the company, its founder, and then talk about the star of the show, the technology, and then we'll bring on our special guest, which this evening is Dr. Jeffrey Hubbard, and he will share a little bit more about the science, technology, and is available to answer your questions. So at the end of the call, we bring you on, and we love to hear your stories. It's the stories that make a difference to help people understand who else to reach out to share the great news of Lifewave. And a reminder, we want symptoms only. If you have anything you want to share, if you have a story, please raise your hand. And if you have a question, please write it in the chat. And we are not here to heal, cure, or diagnose any disease. We're a natural products company, so we talk symptoms only. So ready to get started. And now I get to turn things over to my partner to begin the show here tonight, Jeffrey. Gregory, that's who you are.
It's close. It's close.
And I do hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. It was a wonderful time, wasn't it? And
it was.
Summer has begun. Okay. Onward.
We got our hands in the garden yesterday, that's for sure.
Yes, we did. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everyone. And I'm going to do just a brief overview of Lifewave and our founder, David Schmidt, and this incredible technology. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get the show on the road. And we're going to talk about activating your stem cells. And I had a realization, a few years ago. I finally figured out what I want to be when I get older. Younger.
Yay!
Getting old isn't all it's cracked up to be. So welcome to the stem cell revolution, and everyone wants to look, feel, perform, and live younger. And stem cells are the key because they're a vital part of our immune system that helps to repair and regenerate damaged cells in all of our organs, glands, muscles, bones. They're critically important. The problem is, the older we get, the fewer stem cells we have, the less active they are. And by age 60, only a small percentage remain active. And sadly, the truth is, the fewer that we have, the faster we age and the slower we heal. And so what about stem cell injections? They become very popular and also very expensive. They can be painful, risky, controversial, and there's no guaranteed results. I've spoken with many people that got mediocre or less results, and some people have really good results, but they're really quite expensive. And so we've got good news to share with you here tonight, because you can look, feel, perform, heal, and live younger with this historic breakthrough in stem cell technology. It's a new wearable technology in patch form. It's affordable, it's safe, it's non-invasive, it's non-drug. It's a patented form of phototherapy, and it uses specific frequencies of light to increase and improve stem cell activity. And it's the brainchild of our visionary founder and CEO, David Schmidt. And David is not only a brilliant scientist and researcher, he's a genius inventor with over 100 patents and patent pendings. And he's been on the leading edge of phototherapy research and science for over 20 years. And he's already conducted over 90 clinical studies proving the efficacy of Lifewave phototherapy products. And many more clinical trials are in the works. So Lifewave's a 16-year-old advanced technology company, founded in 2004 based on an energy-enhancing technology developed for the Navy SEALs to increase their strength, stamina, and performance without the use of drugs, stimulants, or caffeine. It turned out to be so effective, it's now used by world-class athletes all around the world in almost every sport. We have corporate headquarters, laboratory, and manufacturing in California, Utah, and Ireland. And we have global distribution to 75 plus countries from our 14 global distribution centers. So how does this amazing technology work? In a nutshell, it's based on a type of light therapy called photobiomodulation. And Lifewave patches contain very specific combinations of organic materials and nanocrystals. When applied or near your body, they're activated by our body heat and they then begin to emit very specific wavelengths of light, which stimulate targeted and beneficial biochemical responses in our body. This is known as photobiomodulation, and it's the basis of our Lifewave phototherapy patches and technologies. Now, it's been a well-recognized and proven scientific principle that specific frequencies of light can cause specific changes within our bodies. For example, when we go out in the sun, a specific frequency of light causes our body to make vitamin D. We don't get a vitamin D download from the sun. And another frequency of light causes our body to make melanin, the chemical that gives us a suntan. And Lifewave's patented technology is based on the same rock-solid, well-recognized scientific principle. Now, our focus for the last 11 years has been in the field of anti-aging and regenerative science. And in January of 2019, just a little over 2 years ago, we released to the global market the Lifewave X39 stem cell activation patch, which is really the crowning rose thus far of David Schmidt's career. It truly is a historic and affordable breakthrough in stem cell technology. Some are calling it the holy grail of anti-aging and restorative science. And we are actually doing what the multi-billion-dollar companies and big pharma have not been able to do. X39 activates a very specific copper peptide that activates our stem cells and also alters gene expression towards a younger and more vibrant you. And yes, we have patents. Yes, we have clinical studies. Yes, we have field results proving that X39 is actually turning back our biological clock, helping people to look, feel, perform, heal, and live younger. And for us baby boomers, that's very exciting news. So what I'd like to do is turn the call back over to Robin and let her introduce our special guest doctor tonight.
Thank you, Gregory. That was wonderful. I love that presentation. It goes through things so quickly. So this evening we have Dr. Jeff Hubbard, and he's an MD out of Texas, and he's also the CEO of Medicare. It's an innovative health and wellness ecosystem. He is one of those wonderful doctors that uses the best of both worlds. And he's here to educate people on lifestyle. He's focused on preventative medicine. He educates people on wellness, and he combines his allopathic medicine with health and wellness to really help people, live a healthy lifestyle. He joined Lifewave, oh my goodness, it's over a year now, I think. And he's building in the US, he's building in Africa, he's serving underserved communities. And we are so blessed to have Dr. Jeff with us tonight. Good evening, Dr. Jeff. And I love your new picture up there. Want to turn your camera on so I can see you? I'm good. Where are you?
Can you see me?
Not yet. We see your picture of these two young boys.
And I can see me, but I don't know why you can't.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you altogether? I think we lost him. Okay, he should be coming back in just a minute. Well, until
I'll be watching for him.
Okay, so he'll be back soon, and we'll get the wisdom of Dr. Jeff in just a moment. He's back. That didn't take very long. Good job, Dr. Jeff. Okay, we still can't see you, but I guess we'll continue on anyway. We have a great picture of you and the little boys. No video? Okay, well, let's move forward. Oh, there you are. I love seeing what's happened to the facial hair, and it's fun. So good evening, Dr. Jeff. And what I always like to start out with, because
how's everybody?
We can see you. I believe they're well. They can't answer, but I'll answer for them. And this evening we have new people on the line, so we like to kind of start with the basics. And as a practitioner, we always want to know, why did you show so much interest and get involved in Lifewave? Because you've certainly developed a passion for it. So what is it about Lifewave that's gotten you so excited?
Well, there's several things, and I think
oh dear, we're not hearing you. You froze up again. Okay, well, he'll be back again. There he is. All right. You seem to be cutting out.
Okay.
You're cutting out some. Talk a little bit and let's see.
Okay. How about now?
That's better. Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
We'll stay with
Okay.
we'll stay
let's
with the
hope this
picture if we
fits.
can't get to see you in person. Yeah. All right.
Okay. So what I was saying is that there are several things about Lifewave that really made my antennas perk up. And one of the first things is that I use an autonomic nervous system device to evaluate patients.
Uh-oh. We keep losing him. We don't want to lose him. He's too valuable. He's back again. Okay. Dr. Jeff, we heard about the autonomic nervous system device and then you cut out. So we're getting just parts of what you're saying. I'm gonna go back to what you were talking about. Now we can't hear you at all. Darn.
I think he might be switching to his phone.
Okay.
I think that's what he was trying to say.
Okay. Oh, good. That would be good. All right. Well, in the meantime, so we've got, so let me let you know that if you have a story to share, please raise your hand. And if you have a question, please write your question out in the chat and we will handle the questions in the order they show up. And only raise your hand if you have a story to share. And remember, symptoms only. We don't name any disease states, and he's flashing in and out, so he will be back. So while we're waiting for him, I'll cover a little bit of the territory. There he is. Let's see if we can hear you.
Okay, how about now?
That's better.
Okay, perfect. I think switching over to the Wi-Fi is what I needed.
It worked.
Okay, so I used this device, right, to analyze somebody's cardiometabolic health. And I went to the research articles and I started reading about Eon, and it used a very similar device to what I used in order to conduct the clinical trial. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. Okay. And I knew a lot about stem cell, obviously, but obviously had no idea that now they could be stimulated, the production of stem cells could be stimulated by a patch. So that was really cool. And then I started participating on a few of these calls and I met some of the Lifewave family, Dr. Nicholas and Dr. Quila and Jackie Smith and these sorts of individuals. And they really began to open my eyes to exactly how powerful this technology is and what's happening in these pockets of communities who are using Lifewave. And that was just really astounding to me. So that made me really want to dig into the literature even deeper. So at that point, I just got my own, sort of opinion about how things work and started doing some experimentation on myself. And, I bought a big pack and I started giving it to some patients and family members who had issues. And I've ceased to be amazed at how the patches continually improve somebody's, balance that the body's in, and how once you remove the interference and all of the harmful things that are happening to our body environmentally, that, things just start to revolutionize themselves. People start to get better really fast. So I was impressed.
That really fast part's fun. Well, I never heard that story before, that you were using the same kind of equipment they use in the clinical trial for Eon. That's fascinating. And Eon is, just so everyone knows, Eon is one of our patches that balances the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and reduces inflammation and stress. But that was the star of the show until X39 came around. So we're going to talk about X39, which activates stem cells. So some people, everybody's heard about stem cells, but Gregory talked some about them. From your perspective, why is this patch so powerful that activates stem cells? And what are stem cells? Yeah.
Well, that's a great question. Let's start there. So
Let's start.
stem
It's
cells.
good to do the basics first, isn't it?
So I'd like for everybody to take this into consideration. Every cell begins as a stem cell for the most part. And as that stem cell grows, it's capable of differentiating or morphing into an adult cell and eventually into adult tissue. And so when we're in the womb and we're an embryo, we're basically made of a big ball of these stem cells. And they essentially are growing and developing into each of the various different layers of our embryonic tissue. So we have ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm, and each of them differentiates into various different parts of our adult anatomy. So we age, and these stem cell production, it declines. And so take into consideration somebody who falls and breaks a hip at 72 and a kiddo who falls out of the tree and breaks his wrist at 12. I mean, that wrist is going to almost be back to normal, probably take 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get out of the cast. Whereas a hip fracture in a senior citizen is potentially life-threatening. You may never actually get used of that hip back. There's a lot of trauma to the joint, and it requires a lot of repair, and that's a very difficult and arduous process. And so that's all about stem cell and the ability to get those stem cells to the right parts of your body and help them to rebuild that tissue. So they are excellent for becoming new tissue. They help to repair, heal, and modulate inflammation appropriately. There's a lot of different things that they do. And the beautiful part about it is, guys, is we still only know a tip of the iceberg about stem cells. We just really started researching them in the early 2000s. So, I mean, we're just 20 or so years into really understanding exactly how stem cells work and having the equipment to be able to properly analyze how those cells function and what their correspondence between each other are. And so that's just a huge area. It's a bio-renaissance, in my opinion, of medical technology associated with stem cell. And if we can figure this out, many of the things that Mr. Schmidt has done with regenerative science and you know, anti-aging and the reversing of the aging process, this is what the focal point of many of the laboratories looking at stem cells. This is what they want to know, is how can we harness the power of stem cells to make us live longer and healthier lives. So we are really on the cutting edge of some awesome stuff.
I love that. I love the way you describe that. We all started out as a stem cell and became a bundle of stem cells, and then they became specific tissues. So a stem cell can be anything that's needed. And when we're young, we have a lot. And when we're old, we have less. Why breaking a hip can be life-threatening, and breaking something when you're young gets healed like that. Amazing, amazing. So moving on to why this patch is so special and how to use it, because the X39 came out in January of 2019. It was introduced to the world on a global tour, and the company tripled in size that year that it came out. And the company was 15 years old at the time. So it was very exciting. And now we've got this patch. How do people use this? I mean, who's it for and how do we use it?
Well, that's a great question. I think that almost any and everyone should be using the X39. Young, old, doesn't matter background, doesn't matter ethnicity, doesn't matter pre-existing conditions. There's a few caveats that we'll get to later, but in general, everyone should be wearing X39. I think has that powerful of a capability. And the reason why is because this particular patch, it does not directly affect stem cells. That is the long-term consequence. The first step is to raise a molecule called GHK, and subsequently a molecule called GHK copper peptide. And those are the particular molecules that are dramatically increased when you wear the patches 12 hours on, 12 hours off, and you associate it with the dosing on the packaging. And this GHK copper peptide has been shown in a multitude of articles to do revolutionary things for the human body. It's been coined the lifestyle molecule. And so we know about genetics. Everybody knows about DNA, okay? But there's actually two strategically different types of genetics. One is our eye color, our hair color, our complexion, our height, our body habitus, maybe some personality traits, things like that. Those things are locked, they're fixed. And this just associated with our genetic makeup. Then there's this whole field of epigenetics. And this is a new area of science where we find out that certain genes can be accentuated and certain genes can be diminished during different times, different rationale for different reasoning. And so instead of just letting those genes kind of fluctuate their production based upon happenstance or the environment, what this GHK copper peptide does is it goes in and it specifically influences those genes that are associated with our health. And there's 4,192 different genes that we have found that GHK copper peptide influences. And all of those are designed to make us healthier. So let's say, for instance, it's an unhealthy gene. This particular gene creates plaque buildup in the arteries. GHK copper peptide goes in and it turns that one down or turns it off. Let's say there's another one that helps us to, rebuild damaged lung tissue, right? And we want to turn that one all the way up because we want our lungs to be healthy and to be replenishing their cells on a regular basis. So those are a couple of the examples of the way that this GHK copper peptide works. And I think it's dynamically cool because I believe that at the end of the day, each one of us has our own unique experience genetically with the patch. Now, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but if these GHK copper peptide molecules are going into our personal genetic makeup and turning on and turning off certain genes, then that's going to, in my opinion, is associated with what genes need to be accentuated for your body and what you need to have done for you to be at the optimal state of health. And
Wow.
so that's next level stuff,
That is amazing stuff. And we invite everyone to research this copper peptide, GHK-CU. And Dr. Jeff talked about a lot of the things it does. We only talk about the things we have clinical proof for, like altering gene expression to a more youthful you, activating your own younger stem cells and creating more, accelerating wound healing. But there's many, many more things. So it's a really good place to start when you're doing your own research. That's really, really wonderful. And the big companies like Jeffrey, why do I want to call Gregory Jeffrey? Because it's you, Jeffrey. Gregory was sharing that the multi-billion-dollar companies have tried to activate it unsuccessfully, and David Schmidt was able to create it in an affordable, safe, natural solution. And what you also said about this copper peptide and about the body, nothing's going in the body. So the copper peptide and what's happening with the activation is modulating. It's taking the body to homeostasis, right? It's doing what the body is designed to do. And if anyone really wants to do more research, there's this book called GHK Copper Peptide, and it's by Dr. Lauren Picard, Resetting Your Genes to Youth. This specific one says for skin and hair beauty, but there's a lot more information if you're the science kind of person. Some of it's over my head, but if you read between the lines, there's a lot in here, isn't there, Dr. Jeff?
A lot, and I need to get my hands on that book.
You don't have it? Oh my goodness. Here you go.
Yeah.
It's for you. It's for you. Okay. You want to just briefly talk about the conditions to make the patch more effective, and then we'll open things up for stories and questions?
Yes. Really briefly, you want to remain hydrated. So a general rule of thumb about hydration is that you want to drink 2/3 or 0.66% of your current body weight in pounds in ounces of water. So If you were a 100-pound individual, you would be drinking 66 ounces of water per day. Okay. That's really important. There's all sorts of processes that are happening that need hydration, that need water in order to continue and flow appropriately. Right. Also, you want proper minerals. So there's three main minerals that have been determined to be helpful in patch utilization. That is magnesium, copper, and zinc. All right. And so those three minerals, however, you know, big proponents for nutrition in general. So these, as amazing as these patches are, they do not prevent you from having a healthy diet and being fit and exercising on a regular basis. This is an addition to your existing regimen to be healthy. And so, you know, just focus on trying to stay active and trying to put the right fuels in your system, and then consistently wear the patches. You don't want to overdo it. Your body can develop you know, a particular dependency or affinity to the frequency, and you want to make sure that every time you take the patch on and put it back on, take the patch off and put it back on, that you have a response. So that's the really important thing. So
Yeah.
12 hours on, 12 hours off. Set your alarm, set your cell phone, you know, give yourself the warning to say, hey, put your patches on or take your patches off.
Great. That was wonderful. So let's open things up. That was wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Jeff. We have Bonnie, who has a story, and then we're going to go to some of the questions. And so Bonnie, please share your story, and remember, excuse me, symptoms only. And you should be allowed to talk, and you're muted. So why don't you unmute?
Unmute. All right. I really had a question, not a.
You know what, Bonnie? We wanted to have stories first.
Okay.
If there's
So,
any, yeah, go ahead. Do you have a story to share?
yes. No, no, I'll wait for questions.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So let's go to Mary Beth. She says, how much copper should I consume?
I would follow the regimen on the bottom, or I'm sorry, not the bottom, on the back of the copper bottle, and just whichever copper product you're using, I would, you know, follow the directions on how much copper to consume.
Great, thank you. I think David says 2.5 milligrams daily, and
that sounds about right.
Yeah. So Bengali is saying, she's asking, I have a client who has lost some vision in the center of her eyes because of pressure and has damage to the optic nerve. Her doctor wants to do laser to open drainage. Anything else I can do for her? I have her using X39 on a mask and Eon on the third eye, but now her skin or arms are having a rash.
Okay, you can get a little bit more aggressive. I always like to talk about the sleep mask, but you can get a little bit more aggressive, and you can do a stacked glutathione and Eon over both eyes. And then you can do an X39 on the third eye, which is governing vessel 24.5. So there's this triangular phenomenon in acupuncture where if you put the patches or stimulate acupuncture points in a triangle shape, they have a more dramatic effect. So I found that people who are wearing a sleep mask, they can add a third patch here, and that is really effective. Now, the pressure buildup in the aqueduct, that is one of the more challenging issues with the eye, but I have heard that there are people who have experienced some significant improvement. And specifically, if you're having pain, you can use Lifewave underneath the eyes on stomach to acupuncture point.
Beautiful. I love that triangle. That's wonderful. And the rash many times can be a detox. And so lots of water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a good thing. The body, it's working. It's working. Okay. So Marlene says, I have a degenerative lower back pain. How many patches can I use? Which ones? And can I wear them for more than 12 hours?
Great question. You can use all 10 if you'd like. It's just each one of them has its own unique frequency. So that frequency is what you don't want to develop that affinity for. So personally, I like a daytime and a nighttime regimen. And that way you get 24/7 photobiomodulation therapy, but not at the same frequency. So if you have low back pain, you can be more aggressive, like with two X39s. I think three is overkill, but like two X39s, an Eon, and maybe a glutathione or ice wave can be amazing for revolutionizing some sort of joint issue or swelling or pain or discomfort. And to orient those, it's kind of a case by case basis. If you're going to use ice wave, that's a little bit more challenging of a patching protocol. So you have to find the right orientation. And I suggest that you take a couple of looks at some YouTube videos. There's a wealth of information about how to use ice wave patches and energy patches. And then on top of that, I like X39 at the hallmark locations of governing vessel 14 and conception vessel 4 under the navel. Eon works really well right on top of the pain. So that can be good for minimizing inflammation and also, as we talked about earlier, balancing the autonomic nervous system. So that's a great strategy. And then in the evening, I like Eon to sleep. So maybe that's a better choice at night. And Alavita is also really good at night to kind of help get a restful sleep.
Okay, there's a lot of good suggestions there, Dr. Jeff. Thank you. Yeah, you just don't want to wear the same patch 24 hours, but you can wear different patches, 12 on, 12 off, and then change patches. So the Eon people find to be really helpful at night because it does help reduce pain, helps people sleep, helps people's system calm down. So that's a great one. And let's see, Diane is asking, why do we not want chemo patients to use X39?
Well, that's a pretty straightforward one. So typically what happens with a chemotherapy treatment is those pharmaceutical drugs are designed to kill unhealthy growing cells. And so typically the way in which they're administered is through an IV. And so these drugs travel throughout the bloodstream and they affect all of our cells, not just the unhealthy ones that we want to kill. So typically what happens is that the side effects and other associated symptoms of a chemotherapy treatment are just the chemical dosing of other healthy cells. So it's counterintuitive, right? Because the X39 raises stem cell, it raises GHK, copper peptide. So these things are going to replenish and rebuild and grow tissue, which is the opposite of what the oncologist wants to happen with the chemotherapy treatment. Wants to kill those cells. So we just tell you to stay clear or to make sure that you have a really detailed, oriented conversation with your oncologist and present patches, present, maybe some videos or something for him or her to watch so that he or she understands exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And then if they say, okay, this makes sense, I follow what you're trying to accomplish, then great. But typically, what I've heard is that most oncologists don't like it. They want to stick to their regimen, get you through that part, and then you can consider other treatments and other options from that. So the other patches outside of X39 are fair game to kind of help minimize and manage some of those symptoms. But X39 is kind of a no-no from that perspective.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, Tina is sharing that last year, this time, my husband had reactions to the blooming trees in our area. More of the same trees in our area, however, no reactions as last year. Yay, X39 and other patches. So I know a lot of people are having their allergies act up right now because of the blooming, but people that are wearing X39 are having a better time. Thank you, Tina, for that. And Liz is saying, can someone with high copper levels use X39?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think there would be any reason to rule out X39 because your copper levels are already high. I mean, typically we want your copper levels to be higher than the baseline anyway. So, you know, we talked about those three minerals: magnesium, copper, and zinc. And
Mm,
so if you have high copper levels, that should actually be beneficial, as long as you keep it balanced with those other minerals.
great, great. And Liz is also asking, what is the best protocol for a thyroid nodule?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What is the best protocol for a thyroid nodule?
Well, a glutathione works excellent. And there is, I believe this is conception vessel 22, if I'm not mistaken, right here at the notch of your neck. And that's excellent for all things throat. So if you place glutathione there, also aloe vera is also great for thyroid function, and so is SP6.
Great.
Both of those patches have also been shown to help thyroid and to make sure that it's appropriately functioning.
Beautiful. And Doug is asking, if you want X39 for an acute injury and you only want to use one X39, is placing it on the two main points more effective than placing it near the injury? And would X39 in both traditional and injury area be significantly more effective?
So I'm going to answer that question this way. There's about 75 to 80% of people who have what we consider to be an immediate response to X39, where within a couple of hours to a couple of days, people are like, wow, that pain, that discomfort, that swelling, whatever my ailment is, it has been dramatically reduced or is no longer there. Now, in those instances, I think you get a lot of value for putting the X39 right on the area of complication. However, for most people, and I think long term, there's a really strong benefit for putting it in those hallmark locations along the midline, because that's like a full body stem cell improvement experience, and your body's just working diligently to replace worn out cells, worn out tissue, scar tissue, damage, trauma, etc. And over 3 to 4 months, you're just really basic building new organs, new tissue, new bone, new joints, and voila, 6 months later, you feel like a young person, and you've got a different bounce in your step, etc. And so for some people who are really trying to deal with a particular pain, sometimes X39 needs to operate in the background for 4 to 6 months. And you need to use some of the other patches for more acute, immediate treatment of those particular ailments. So I like Eon is really great with swelling and pain. Ice Wave is obviously dramatic with pain. Energy level, I mean, energy enhancer is really great with specific organ function and awaking certain organs. You know, if you got a little kidney sluggish or adrenal sluggish, or maybe if you need a little bit more mental clarity, energy enhancer works great. So, you know, take into consideration the benefits of the other patches as X39 does this thing over the long run. So
Beautiful.
I wouldn't expect for really dramatic things with X39 until about 4 to 5 months in. That's the sweet spot when you really start to see things reverse themselves. But you know, some people within the first week, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm a new person." That's great, and we like to tell those testimonials, but that's probably the outliers of our Lifewave family that get a really great response, or the ailment is responsive to X39 right off the bat. That's not always the case. So I hate to say that, because then people get discouraged. So
Okay.
don't give up.
Okay, so, you know, stay with it. Whatever's going on didn't happen overnight. Give it some time. And if you have an acute situation, there's many other patches. So I want to end things with a story from Liz. And if you have a story and want to share it, we'd love to hear your voice. And you do raise your hand if you have a question, please write it. And that's the way I do things. So I'm sorry, Bonnie, I didn't see your question in writing. So next time, remember to write it if you have a question.
It is.
Yes, no, Bonnie,
Yeah.
I do want people to really get trained to write their questions. So why don't you go ahead, and then next time, please write it down, okay?
Okay. And I did write it down. It's in the chat area at the bottom.
At the bottom, okay.
Yeah. I've had an inquiry about what men should do who have a problem in the bedroom, and I can't use the word, but is there a patch protocol for them?
Great, thank you.
So there is and there isn't. I know for sure that I've had a lot of experience with prostate issues, and I always recommend to apply X39 into the gentleman's underwear between the scrotum and the anus and in the perineal area. And that gives a lot of reduction in swelling and challenges with frequency and urgency to the prostate. Now, the conception vessel points that are near the pubic bone, so like conception vessel 1, 2, 3, that has been shown to increase libido. But I can't say that I've had any person say, oh, well, I've completely revolutionized my desire and my stamina and libido. But I have heard that people have a little bit more desire in the bedroom. So that's a great question, and I think a really hot topic. I think if we could solve some of those, we would probably make some households a little bit happier. But I think that that's something that you have to quantify, right? So I'd love to see somebody do a journal of successful sexual activity. I know for a lot of ladies, Nirvana has been excellent for kind of helping to stimulate certain hormones for female reproduction and for female vaginal health, etc. So guys, I all for it. Please try that, see if it helps. If we could quantify that somehow, that would be great. And we could add that to the repertoire of things that we talk about.
I love it. Great stuff. Well, we've gone a little bit over. We have another story from Karen and another one. I'll just read the one from Liz. She says, my gray hairs are reversing only after 3 months. Her fatigue is gone and she suffered for 15 years. She's had many other upgrades, physical and emotional, and the best outcomes are in my consciousness. I would love to hear, Dr. Jeff, have you also experienced anything like this?
In my consciousness. We're getting deep now. I love it.
Hey.
I think so too. I have been wearing X39 at night more often than I was previously. And I've been stacking X39 and Eon and putting them right here on my forehead. And I have the most amazing dreams, and you're vivid, and typically, you can have a really profound dream. You wake up and 20 minutes, 30 minutes after you wake up, it's like, it's fuzzy. I can't remember everything. It's like now I almost want to get a dream journal. And when I get up, I just want to, kind of just write all over the page and discuss what it was that I was dreaming about. But I do think that there's a bit of a component for some spiritual and heightened consciousness and things like that. That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, where the X39 just kind of has a mind of its own, and depending upon what your genetics and what your focal point is, boom, you kind of have these different experiences. So I agree that there is a element of consciousness that definitely happens with consistent usage of the patches.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And Karen, why don't we save yours for next week? And I did hear David Schmidt talk about Alavita expanding consciousness. He on the third eye. So that would be a triple whammy for your sleep time there. So Dr. Jeff, it's
Try it
always
out.
a pleasure to learn from you. You share so much value and wisdom. What a treat to have you. And we want to thank everyone for joining us. And if you're, we want you to get back to the person who invited you. And Gregory, do you want to come on and share for people that are ready to get started, the different options? Did we lose Gregory? Looks like we lost Gregory. Well, let me share that if you haven't gotten started yet, we have a few different programs. We have a customer program and a member program. So please get back to the person who invited you this evening. I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us and give you a special welcome if this is your first time learning about X39 and Lifewave. And Dr. Jeff, always a treat. I always get to learn, and I'm going to learn those conception vessels from you. That's wonderful. Okay, everyone. So have a great evening. Take good care and keep patching. Okay. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. See you later. Thanks, guys.